Lesson 29, I will represent and solve four-digit dividend division with divisors of 2, 3, 4, and 5. So today we're going to continue to divide numbers. Yesterday we divided three-digit numbers. Today we're going to divide four-digit numbers. And when it says with divisors of 2, 3, 4, and 5, that means we will only be dividing by 2, 3, 4, or 5 today. We won't be dividing by 6, 7, 8, etc. All right, so first of all, in your math journal, go ahead and get it ready for today. We're going to do one division problem in your math journal today. So the division problem that we're going to do is 4,325 divided by 3. And we're going to divide using standard algorithm or long division. It's the same thing. And then we're going to multiply to check our answer. So first of all, I want you to think back to what we did yesterday when we were using place value disc. That will help you to remember what steps to take. So if you remember when we divide using place value disc, the first thing that we do is we always divide the largest number possible. So we're going to begin by dividing our thousands place. We have 4 thousands. So if I take 4 and I put it into 3 groups, I'm going to have 1 in each group. And then I multiply to see how many I'm going to use. That's going to use 3 thousands. And that's going to have 1,000 left over. So I'm going to take that 1,000 and I'm going to add it to these 300s. And now I'm going to divide 13 by 3. So I'm thinking to myself, 4 times 3 equals 12. So that's as close to 13 as I can get. So 4 times 3 would be 12. I'm going to subtract, see how many hundreds are left over. And I have 100 left over. I'm going to add that to these two tens. And now I have 12 tens. 12 tens divided by 3 is going to have 4 in each group. And then 4 times 3 is still 12. And then I'm going to subtract. And I have no tens left over. And again, I talked to you yesterday about a lot of students when they get right here, anytime they get to a 0, they think they're finished. But we're not finished because, first of all, I know because when I look up here my quotient, I don't have anything in the ones place. I must at least have a 0 there. But I have not divided these ones yet. So I'm going to divide these 5 ones. And when I take 3, I put 5 ones in 3 groups. That's going to give me 1 1 in each group. That's going to use 3 ones with 2 ones left over. So I'm going to have a remainder of 2. So my answer is 1,441 with a remainder of 2. So now we're going to use multiplication to check our answer. So I'm going to take my quotient, 1,441, and I'm going to multiply it by my divisor, which is 3. I'm just going to use standard algorithm. So I get 3 here. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 3 is 12 plus 1 is 13. 1 times 3 is 3 plus 1 is 4. Okay, I'm going to look over here. Oops, I'm not getting the same thing. Because remember, I have to add back my remainder. I'm going to add 2. And that gives me 4,325, which is my original number, so it does check out. Okay, this is the strategy that we're going to be using today. So let's go ahead and get our problem set. Go ahead and write your name on your problem set. And then we're going to do the exact same thing today on our problem set that we just did in our journals. We're going to divide, and then we're going to check using multiplication. So if you feel like you're pretty confident you can do this by yourself, go ahead and pause the video and try to divide by yourself, but I do want you to come back and check with me. I'm going to walk you through every problem. 1,672 divided by 4. Now, when I try to take 1,000 and divide it by 4, I get 0. I cannot put 1 into 4 groups. So if I subtract 0, I'm going to have 1,000 left over, and I'm going to add that to the 600s. Now I'm going to take 1,600s, divide that by 4. That's going to put 4 in each group. 4 times 4 is 16. So I have no hundreds left over. So I'm going to add that to the 7 tens. Take 4, divide 7 tens by 4. That's going to put 1 in each group. The 4 that I used, that's going to leave a remainder of 3 tens. I'm going to add that to these 2 ones. Now I've got 32 divided by 4, which is 8. And 8 times 4 is 32. So I have a remainder of 0. Now I'm going to check my answer. Now this 0 has no value, so I can pretty much just eliminate that. My answer is actually just 418. So I have 418 times 4. 8 times 4 is 32. 1 times 4 is 4 plus 3 is 7. 4 times 3 is 15. I get 1,672. so my answer checks out. All right, so I'm going to try this one. 1,578 divided by 4. Again, I cannot 1,000 divided into 4 groups is not going to give me any group, so that will be a 0. So 0 times 4 is 0. So I'm going to have that 1,000 left over. I'm going to add it to my 500ths. So now I have 1,500ths divided by 4, which would be 3. 3 times 4 is 12. That's going to leave me a remainder of 3. I'm going to add that to these 7 tens, and now I have 37 tens divided by 4, which is 9, because 9 times 4 is 36. I have 1 10 left over. I'm going to add it to these 8 ones, and now I have 18 ones divided by 4, which is going to be 4. 4 times 4 is 16. That leaves a remainder of 2. So again, this 0 has no value. So my answer is 394. I'm going to check that. 394 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. 9 times 4 is 36, plus 1 is 37. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 3 is 15. I get 1,576. Oops, I forgot to put my remainder 2 up here. I have to add my remainder 2, which gives me 1,578. So my answer does check. All right, keep going. So again, if you feel confident, like you can do this by yourself, go ahead and pause the video and try to do it by yourself and then come back to check. All right, so I've got 6,948 divided by 2. So 6,000s divided by 2 is 3,000s. I'm going to subtract the 6,000s that I used, and I'm going to divide the 900s. 4 times 2 is 8. I have 100 left over. Add that to my 4 tens. 14 tens divided by 2 is 7. 7 times 2 is 14. I have no tens left over. Divide my 8 ones, which would be 4. 4 times 2 is 8. I have no remainder. So I have 3,474. So I'm going to check that. Multiply it by 2. 8. 14, carry the 1. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. 3 times 2 is 6. I get 6,948, so it does check out. All right, so let's do this one. 8,949 divided by 4. So 8,000s divided by 4 is 2,000s. 2 times 4 is 8. When I subtract, I have no thousands left over, so I'm going to add that to the 900. 900s divided by 4 is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. That leaves me 100 left over. I'm going to add that to the 4 tens. Now I've got 14 tens divided by 4, which is 3. 3 times 4 is 12. That gives me 2 tens left over. I'm going to add that to the 9 ones. So 29 divided by 4 would be 7. 7 times 4 is 28. That leaves me a remainder of 1. So my answer is 2,237, remainder 1, and I'm going to check that. So I'll take 2,237 times 4. 7 times 4 is 28. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. And 2 times 4 is 8. That's 8,948 plus 1 is going to be 8,949. So my answers do match. Right, let's try E. Again, if you haven't tried any of these by yourself, go ahead and try to do it by yourself. And if you get stuck, you can always press play. But get as far as you can by yourself. That's good practice. 7,569 divided by 2. 7,000 divided by 2, I'm thinking to myself, 3 times 2 is 6. That's as close as I can get to 7. So 3 times 2 is 6. That's going to leave me 1,000 left over. I add that to the 500ths. 1,500ths divided by 2. Well, 7 times 2 is 14, so I'm going to use 7. 7 times 2 is 14. That leaves me with 1 left over. I'm going to bring down the 6. Now I've got 16 tens. 16 tens divided by 2 would be 8 tens. 8 times 2 is 16. That leaves me with 0 tens. Now I'm going to divide the ones. I've got 9 ones. 4 times 2 is 8. So that's as close as I can get to 9. So I'm going to extend this page a little bit so I have some room to write. All right. So I have 9 divided by 2, which is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. I'm going to subtract the 8. That leaves me with a remainder of 3,784. Remainder 1. I'm going to check that by multiplying by 2. So 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 7 times 2 is 14. Plus 1 is 15. 3 times 2 is 6. Plus 1 is 7. And then I'm going to add my 1 remainder. That gives me 7,569. So my answer does check. I'm going to take 7,569 and divide it by 3. So I've got 7 thousands divided by 3. Well, 2 times 3 is 6, and that's as close as I can get to 7 without going over. I'll subtract that, leaves 1,000 left over. I'm going to add that to my 500ths. 15 hundredths divided by 3 would be 5, because 5 times 3 is 15. That leaves no hundredths, so now I'm going to divide the tens. 6 tens divided by 3 is 2 tens. 2 times 3 is 6. That leaves me no tens, so now I'm going to divide the ones. 9 ones divided by 3 is 3, and 3 times 3 is 9, so I have no remainder. So my answer is 2,523. Now I'm going to check that by multiplying it times 3. That gives me 9, 6, 15, carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7. 7,569. So my answer does check. All right, let's try the back side now. All right, so 7,955 divided by 5. So remember, I would like for you to pause occasionally and try to do these problems by yourself, and then you can always press play to check. All right, so 7 thousands divided by 5, that would be 1,000. 1 times 5 is 5. 7 minus 5 is 2. I'm going to add that to my 900ths. 29 divided by 5. So 5 times 5 is 25, but 6 times 5 is 30. That would be too much. I'm going to do 5. 5 times 5 is 25. That leaves 4 hundredths left over. I'm going to add that to my 5 tens. 45 divided by 5 is exactly 9. 5 is 45. I have no tens left over, and I'm going to divide my ones. 5 ones divided by 5 is 1. So I have no remainder. So my answer is 1,591. I'm going to multiply that by 5 to see if it checks out. So 1 times 5 is 5. 9 times 5 is 45. 5 times 5 is 25. Plus 4 is 29. 1 times 5 is 5. Plus 2 is 7. 7,955. So it does check out. I have 7,574 divided by 5. So I've got 7 thousands divided by 5. That would be 1,000. 1 times 5 is 5. I subtract. I have 2 thousands left over. Add that to the 500ths. 25 hundredths divided by 5 would be 5, because 5 times 5 is 25. No hundreds left over, so now divide the tens. 7 tens divided by 5 is 1. 1 times 5 is 5. 7 minus 5 is 2. I'm going to add that to the 4 ones. 24 ones divided by 5 would be 6, would be 4, because 4 times 5 is 20, and that's going to leave me with a remainder of 4. So I've got 1,514. I'm going to multiply that times 5. 4 times 5 is 20. 1 times 5 is 5, plus 2 is 7. 5 times 5 is 25. 1 times 5 is 5, plus 2 is 7. I'm going to add my 4, so that gives me 7,574. So my answers do match. Now, let's try the last 2 problems again. If you haven't done any of these by yourself, I want you to try to do at least one of these all by yourself, and you can always press play if you get stuck. All right, I've got 7,469 divided by 3. So 7 thousands divided by 3 would be 2, because 2 times 3 is 6. 7 minus 6 is 1. I'm going to add that to my 400. I've got 14 hundredths. 14 hundredths divided by 3 is going to be 4. 4 times 3 is 12. I subtract, that leaves 2. Add that to the 6 tens. 26 tens divided by 3 is 8 tens. 8 times 3 is 24. That leaves a remainder of 2. Add that to my 9 ones. So 29 divided by 3 is 9, because 9 times 3 is 27, and that leaves a remainder of 2. All right, so now I'm going to check. 2,489 times 3. So 27. 24 plus 2 is 26. 4 times 3 is 12. Plus 2 is 14. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7. And I'm going to add my 2 remainder. I get 7,469. So my answers do check. Last problem like this. So now I've got 9,956 divided by 4. So 9 thousandths divided by 4 is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. So when I subtract, I have 1,000 left over. I add that to my hundredths. Now I have 19 hundredths divided by 4. So 4 times 4 is 16, but 4 times 5 is 20. That would be too much. So I'm going to go with 4 times 4, which is 16. That leaves me with 3 hundredths left over. I'm going to add that to my 5 tens. 35 tens divided by 4 would be 8, because 8 times 4 is 32. I have 3 tens left over. I add that to my 6 ones. So 36 divided by 4 is 9, and 9 times 4 is 36. So I have a remainder of 0. Now I'm going to check 2,489 times 4. So 9 times 4 is 36. 8 times 4 is 32, plus 3, which is 35. 4 times 4 is 16, plus 3 is 19. 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. I get 9,956. So my answers do check. Okay, I got one more problem, then we're finished for today. All right, so there are twice as many cows as goats on a farm. All the cows and goats have a total of 1,116 legs. How many goats are there? Okay, so first of all, I've got to draw something. So I'm going to draw my tape diagram. I have a total. It even says the word total. The total is 1,116 legs. Okay, there are twice as many cows as goats. So I've got cows, cows, goats. Okay? So now I'm trying to figure out how many goats are there. So first of all, I'm going to have to figure out how many animals there are. So if I've got 1,116, and I know that each animal has 4 legs, so let's take this number and divide it by 4. So 11, remember this is a comma. So I cannot take 4 into 1. That would be 0. So 0 times 4 would be 0. So that leaves 1,000. I'm going to add that to my 100. So 11 divided by 4 would be 2. And 2 times 4 would be 8. So when I subtract, I get 3. I'm going to add that to my 110. So I've got 31 tens. 31 tens divided by 4 would be 7, because 7 times 4 is 28. 31 minus 28 is 3. Add that to my 6 ones, and that gives me 9. 9 times 4 would be 36. So I know that there are as many cows as there are goats, and if I take 279 and I divide it by 3, this should tell me how many goats there are. So 2 cannot go into 3, so that would be 0. 0 times 3 would be 0. I'm going to add that to the tens. 27 divided by 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27. That 9 divided by 3 would be 3. 3 times 3 is 9. So that means that each of these boxes would be 93. 93, 93, 93. So this tells me that there are 93 goats. So let's review really quickly. I know that this long division strategy can be a little bit tricky. If you get stuck, you can always come back and look at your problem set, and there's lots of practice that you can do. You can be doing the app on the iPad. You can watch the Think Zillion video, but it's going to take lots of practice to get good at it.